session of the day. ShopTalk is the insider's guide to transforming your retail business, brought to you by 5 by 15. In our Trendcast panel next, we'll hear Laura Perryman and Geraldine Wharry, chaired by Julie Holden. Laura Perryman has over 10 years' experience as a colour and materials designer and insights and trends forecaster. Working with companies, she consults and helps navigate future opportunities, as well as creating designs. During that time, she has brought this knowledge into play for brands including Habitat, Nokia, 3M, DuPont, Sainsbury's, and Panasonic Europe. Laura currently runs consultancy Colour of Saying, which specialises in future experiential design with colour and materials. Geraldine Wharry's experience as a fashion trend forecaster and designer has led her to collaborate across the style industry in fashion, beauty, interiors, electronics, technology, and retail. After designing best-selling collections in New York and Los Angeles for leading fashion brands, she moved to London. There, she gravitated to trend forecasting within the top agencies in the field. She now runs her consultancy with a global reputation for thought-provoking presentations, visionary reports, and accuracy at predicting future trends. Julie is National Membership Manager at the British Independent Retailers Association. She provides support through her dedicated telephone and field-based resource, giving independent retailers a competitive advantage. Working on the front line of retail, Julie helps to shape the services and benefits of membership and reports back on the topics and issues most important to the independent retail sector. We'll have some time afterwards for questions from our audience. The conversation will take about 20 minutes, maybe 25. Do enjoy the session and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Thank you and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here at Pulse London on behalf of BIRA, the British Independent Retailers Association. It's our first time here at Pulse. We tend to be regulars at some of the other trade shows, but we've not been here before. So we've got our own stand over F66. So we'd really love to see you over there. We're also hosting, after this session, we're hosting drinks at the bar, and my colleague's been around with a few little tokens for you. So if you haven't got one and you'd like one, then we can sort that out. Just see me afterwards. The British Independent Retailers Association has actually been in existence since the late 1800s in one form or another. We originally started our existence as Draper's Chamber of Trade, who you may be a bit more familiar with. We support independent retail businesses of all shapes and sizes. We have a membership base of 6,500 independent retailers. And effectively what we do is we take the strength of the buying power of those 6,500 retailers to bring extra benefits to somebody who's running their own business, because you can't do everything alone. We are often asked to participate in these sorts of sessions, and it's a real pleasure to be discussing with Geraldine and Laura a little bit more about the trends. So let's meet your experts. It's Geraldine, is it Wharry? Wharry. Who's a future trends forecaster and fashion designer and consultant, and Laura Perryman, colour and materials designer and also trend forecaster. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over now to Geraldine, who will talk to you a little bit more about her experience and her observations.
Yes, so this quick slide, I will go through my history. I'm actually from Paris. That's where I was born and raised. I have English-speaking parents, so I sort of sound Canadian, but which I love Canada, but I'm actually French, French-American. And I studied textile design in Paris and then moved to New York. That's where I worked as a fashion designer for many years, and that kind of gave me a lot of experience in the process of making a collection from concept to working with the factories, the suppliers, the merchandisers, et cetera, but I felt a bit starved for something more conceptual or more in the research side of things. So when I moved back to Europe, well, what used to be Europe, I decided to look into trend forecasting, and I joined WGSN. So since then, I left WGSN, continued as a consultant with them, but started my own agency, and fast forward to today, I do a lot of consulting with a variety of companies. One of my clients is a stationery company. One is doing artificial intelligence within the retail platform for fashion, so it's quite varied. And I do a lot of my own reports on my blog, which is subscriber-based. So a bit about how we started. I think I've just kind of covered that, but how we collaborate is basically trend forecasting is a lot of research and analysis and a mixture of data and intuition. I'm being instructed. And intuition in order to come up with intelligence that will give our clients, the confidence to really take risks or go into a creative decision that also has high business implications. So we do kind of the footwork, the research, we provide added insights and intelligence, and also the time that a lot of companies don't have to basically research. And we also help them think outside the box and have that kind of light bulb moment, come up with an idea maybe they didn't think of. So for me, the process of trend forecasting is a lot about inspiring with beautiful visuals and examples of what other people are doing. Certainly not copying, but just being intelligent and being aware of what's going on in your market. And that's kind of the goal of how I run my consultancy. It's really all about inspiring and backing it up with expertise and intelligence. So quickly, I do a lot of early forecasting, so I help brands kind of assess what's on the cusp, what's new, what's very innovative, but I also have clients who just want to know what's at retail already and what's trending, so it's quite diverse. So within trend forecasting, because there is so much information in this digital age, and as you can probably see for those of you who follow trend blogs, we cover some of the same things. So it's really about how to make sense out of all of this noise. So trend forecasting more and more has become something very bespoke and tailored. So a lot of what I do, and I'm sure what Laura does, is quite tailored to our specific clients' needs. But as a designer, I also sometimes design collections for brands. Sometimes I'll do the sketching as part of that extension from the trend process to showing how it would manifest itself specifically for me in fashion design. So it's been a really great experience working with Pulse and doing trend reports in terms of the gifting and accessories and jewelry, because that was a little bit outside of my expertise zone. I had been researching these markets but not necessarily designing into them, so it's been great. And this slide has a variety of my clients ranging from WGSN stylists to companies like Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works. Those are USA based. I've worked with also brands like Rip Curl and Seven for All Mankind. And I also do a lot of teaching and lecturing. And that's, yeah, hope I wasn't
Okay,
too
well
long.
done. And we'll now introduce Laura.
So, hi everybody, I'm Laura Perryman. I am a colour and materials and also a trend forecaster. I started off really as a textile designer, and I sort of studied at the Royal College of Art, but after that realised I was really, really obsessed with materials and colour through that process as a graduate, and quickly kind of found a career actually as a CMF or CMD, which is sometimes the way it's termed, which is a colour and material designer. And I really started that expertise working for companies in-house. So companies such as Nokia, I was an in-house colour and materials designer, as well as people like Speedo and Aqualab, so working in fashion accessories. And during that time, I built up a knowledge of seasonal direction, so kind of creative direction every year, and also curating bespoke colour palettes and choosing the right materials that would go with those. So I kind of had a bit of an amalgamation really of career paths and also experiences that kind of got me to where I am today, which is I think is quite interesting as well. So I actually worked for brands such as Toyota, Nokia, and then since then I've stepped away and worked on a consultancy basis. So I worked for a company called Colour Hive, which is global colour research as well, and that's where I really built up quite a lot of knowledge of working with huge ranges and colour palettes and selecting certain colours and curating them for certain seasons for clients. And I've really worked across industry, and I think that's quite interesting as well, as a trend forecaster, that I've worked in kind of interiors, architecture, all the way through to product and interior design, as well as performance textiles. So actually that means that I have quite a big scope of knowledge to do with colour and materials and how they work across different products, strategies and ranges within big companies. And then since then, I've also amalgamated that with trend forecasting, and I felt a little bit as a designer working in those teams that there was process missing, and that was trend forecasting. So part of my expertise has also been working for trend forecasting companies such as WGSN, and now I think my practice is like an amalgamation of design and trend forecasting. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I run a consultancy, and I also work for a trend forecasting company as well.
great. Okay. So we'll be moving on now. Then, Geraldine, you're going to be looking at some of the autumn and winter trends.
Right. This is actually an article that's on the Pulse blog on pulse.com on color obsession, and it's basically running through some of the key colors, the key brights specifically for autumn winter 17, which I'm sure if you've walked the floor, brights are really big even for autumn winter. There's no such thing really as spring colors versus winter colors anymore. So I'm just going to run you through some of the key colors. Sunflower yellow, I've called this color. Yellow's been really becoming a very strong color for several seasons now on the catwalks and in product directions for accessories. So this is a color sometimes people feel a bit shy about. They think it's not that easy to wear, but yellow is a very strong color. Even if you're very print and pattern driven, you should incorporate it within your accent brights. It's also great for some of the trending materials in fashion right now, which are suede, velvets. That yellow tone will really enhance those materials. And then one of the other colors was called Purple Rain, and it echoes the strength of pastel colors, which we've been seeing in fashion. And it also echoes some of the iridescent rainbow kind of colors that we've been seeing, or nighttime graphics. So this is quite strong, and it's moving away from a sort of romantic pastel combination into something a bit more 80s and a bit more edgy. Orange Crush, orange is huge. It was the color of the year, I think, for Pantone, was it? No, greenery was this year. Last year was orange, so essentially that makes sense for it's hitting the market now. And I think it also has a lot to do with the popularity of workwear and those kinds of trends, and we've been seeing it come really strongly in fashion across the board, and I've shown some examples in the report of some of the brands also on the floor. The Life Aquatic, this kind of echoes a bit the greenery trend, but essentially blues were huge several seasons ago, and they've evolved into this kind of aqua tone, which is a little bit quirky and is also being paired with greens, and is really amazing in terms of different materials. That's the thing with, I'm sure you can see everything right now is very tactile, so that's why I think also brights are really coming through, because color just enhances materials and textures. And finally, infrared filter. I was surprised myself when, doing the trend research, how much red is still incredibly strong in the trends. With autumn winter, it often evolves into burgundies. So that's why in this slide you see it kind of introduced with burgundies. It's been strong for several years now, and it doesn't seem to really be going away. But what I found was interesting in this slide was seeing it paired with sort of transparent for sunglasses, or these kind of ombre colors also paired with burgundy. So that's about it for color brights for autumn winter 17.
Thank you, Geraldine. Yeah, there's some really interesting colour combinations there, and as you say, very sort of easy to wear, and lots of bold colours for accessories and so on. What Laura's going to talk about now are some of the sort of textures and the materials that are trending for the next season.
Yeah, so this is like a mixture really of trends that are driven from interiors, from architecture, and how they're going to affect things like product design, VM, display, as well as kind of actual real accessories and products. So I actually wrote this piece for the Pulse blog, and you can access that online as well. But I'm going to talk about 3 stories and how they've kind of evolved and why they're important for spring, well, for autumn, winter, but also for spring, summer 18 as well. And a little bit about the first story, which is called Lush Organics. And I think this is really, really relevant now because of our kind of total obsession with plants and greenery in the home, which has been building a lot with interiors over the past couple of years. But I think this is really starting to hit the kind of gift and accessory market much more and more. And I wanted to show you kind of a little bit about the process of trend forecasting in this presentation as well. So roughly kind of trends are predicted about 2 years in advance. So this is for autumn winter 17 into 18, and I kind of started working on this at the back end of 2015. So kind of like 2 years ago, kind of trying to find those early indicators. Where is this trend coming from? How can we build up a visual of what might happen in the future? And some of these references show artists actually at the time who were really starting to curate almost like gallery space style exhibitions using plants and greenery. So the inspiration for the materials you can really see comes directly from plant materials, so like really waxy, like leaf finishes, really kind of coarse and dense planting, starting to actually come into the art world, which is really interesting. But also I think this is why this trend's not really going anywhere in terms of plants and greenery in general. Also, you've got Pantone totally promoting it as well by launching greenery as their colour of the year. That commercially is making this trend continue, I think, past this current season as well. But also it has lots of health and well-being connections. So you've got lots of positives about having plants in the home and also retail spaces as well. They can cleanse the air. They can do lots of positive things for us. So I don't think that this is a flash in the pan kind of trend, although we might all be quite familiar with it. It's understanding where it might go. I think that's quite important also.
And also how it might be built into the products that you're stocking in your shops, if you've got retail shops, and how you might also promote that in a digital form as well. When you've got a retail outlet, it's much easier because you've got the ability for that tactile touching, feeling. You don't have that necessarily on the in terms of an online presence. So being able to interpret these trends is really important.
So this next slide shows sort of what this trend's starting to pick up in terms of product development and areas that it's starting to influence. So these are examples really of kind of like early adopter brands or I suppose products that are starting to be influenced by greenery. And we've already sort of started to see this, but I think some of the examples here just show how it can, how this material trend could affect kind of product design as well as finish as well. So you've got here a real focus on products that are helping home planting, that are helping people integrate planting in really small ways within their homes, such as the image that you can see on the top right there, as well as surface and material qualities. So those waxy, gloopy, dark, I suppose, beautiful textures that you see on waxy leaves are starting to come into ceramic design. And I also think that it has opened up quite a big area for almost like a new type of product design. So it's not necessarily about plants and pots anymore. It's about putting plants on pedestals and giving them much more, I suppose, kind of emphasis within a space. So you can see lots of new kind of product ideas where you're kind of supporting plants and presenting them in really interesting ways for interiors and gift. And I also just wanted to highlight a few Pulse Unseen exhibitors here. So these are, I suppose, early adopter brands of this trend who are starting to kind of, bring these products to the market, influenced by these lush organic textures, but also the sort of planting story that sits behind this. So you've got this lovely home self-watering plant system, which is available on Yod & Co.'s stand, which is not too far away from here. And then also looking at that idea of curated greenery and plants This is a lovely kind of rug that's been made where the plants are lovely, like the pattern in the plants are sort of very kind of spaciously placed. So it's not a kind of like over curation of plants. It's very selective, and I think that's quite interesting. I think that's where it's going.
Yeah, so it's the interpreting those trends within all of the different elements, so from fashion, from accessories, from jewellery, from homewares, and also looking at how that can be interpreted from a visual merchandising perspective as well. If you've got a shop unit, then you can start to look to incorporate some of these trends in your actual visual merchandising, even if it's not because you're selling those particular product types, but being able to be on trend in terms of what is going to engage with the audience. Also looking at stationery items and branding and packaging as well, having some thought to the trends that are up and coming and the colours that are up and coming to be able to anticipate the best response from your audience. So Geraldine, we're just on the last. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I've got the last one as being that one. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I've got a couple of trends just to go through. This one is entitled Rice Paper Textures, but it's more to kind of highlight a growing sort of mindfulness and consciousness to do with materials that we consume within our daily lives. And there's a huge shift, and I think Geraldine's also going to be talking about it, to do with the luxury industry, but also to do with how we consume products and how the materials are recycled, where they're made, how ethical they are to be involved in the product, and where they go afterwards as well. So we're seeing a huge drive across lots of different industries to make sure that they have some sort of sustainability story and know where their materials are made and know where they're manufactured, making that very clear for consumers. I don't think that's like a new trend, but I think it's definitely almost like a concurrent theme that's going to be running through the next few seasons: fashion, interior, lifestyle, everything really. But this is just almost like a strand of it. And these materials are kind of very translucent, very natural, pure materials. So rice paper is a very kind of natural material that can be recycled very easily. And it's kind of encouraging that to be part of a packaging or piece of product design. So again, about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, when I was kind of researching autumn winter, there was just a real surge of the use of this almost like translucent, very minimal material across kind of lifestyle art, again, those kind of other worlds that influence the market sectors that are here today. And you can see there's almost like the crinkle effect, and the translucency is an effect that is wanted because it shows that it's natural and organic, and that shouldn't be kind of hidden in any way. So I think it sort of supports a sort of real drive within branding and packaging for a kind of minimalism. And that's been building in different ways as well over the past couple of seasons, but you can see the need for transparency that consumers are wanting and they're desiring when it comes to beauty and also product design. They want real clarity on those materials, like where they're made, but also they want to know exactly what's in the packaging, almost like a no fuss, no frills back to kind of branding approach. And I think those ideas of very simple, natural materials, very simple packaging, really are complemented with the simple sans serif typefaces, which you can see in several of these brands. And I think we can see this appearing at Pulse as well. This was, again, a brand from Yod & Coast and a new kind of health-conscious beauty product range. And this is actually a series of bottles which are for kind of their washing liquid, but you wouldn't know that, I think, from necessarily looking at their very well-considered design, and they're using, again, this kind of very minimal, natural material, sort of the crinkle element and the kind of natural ability to use a very simple material as a wrap around a bottle that can be thrown away very easily and now actually recycled really easily as well. So that's definitely a very strong trend, I feel, that's coming and is also important for the next coming season as well. I think that's sort of the longevity of how we use our products and where they're recycled and everything is just continual. It's not really a brand new trend.
Yeah, it's more a development that's an ongoing development, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Definitely. And then I just have one last one, which is much more of a kind of bold kind of here we are kind of now trend, which is called coloured chrome. And that's really been driven out by a kind of a really strong interiors story, actually, where you've got this really like bold, very kind of over-the-top, powerful use of materials and colour, and it's almost very authoritarian in its kind of look, and it's kind of like a little bit 80s, but again trying to push past just gold and silver all the time. These really, really high polished chrome surfaces and the sort of combinations of those colours as well. So you've got purples, blues, really strong bronze colour. Really being combined together, and the high shine finish as well. I think that's going to be really strong for the autumn winter. And we've seen this sort of growing, I suppose, in a different industry. So this is why I've sort of put some research together here to do with visual display and visual merchandising, and how actually you can use this trend, not necessarily to develop a product necessarily, but also to create an environment. So I think actually it creates a really bold, really powerful look. And I suppose if you have a bricks and mortar store, that kind of thing, you could be curating almost little powerful pops of colour, like little environments to kind of really engage consumers. And I think it's been, there's lots of examples of this coming out of the furniture and interior design industry, where you've got these like really, really bold uses of coloured chrome in very kind of geometric but very simple shapes. And I think this trend is starting to be picked up by some of the Pulse Unseen people that we have here today. So again, not looking at just gold and silver, but the use of a really, really strong, almost bronze colour on the pen brand there. And then also, it's starting to creep into accessories. So we can see it here on these plant pots, where you've got almost like the combinations of coloured chrome all kind of lined up together to create a range. So it's not necessarily just one colour.
Fantastic.
So there.
Okay, thank you. And Geraldine's just going to finish us off now with a little bit more insight.
This is actually a report which will also be on the Pulse blog, on materials focus as well, but for fashion specifically, and basically fashion accessories and jewelry. And interestingly, it echoes some of what Laura was just talking about, which just kind of shows you the synergies between fashion and interiors and in general the style industry. So this is for materials specifically, and the first one was metallic rainbow. And metallic rainbow, just showing the kind of iridescent, dichroic, rainbow-like metallics that are coming through. That are very 70s inspired, but then pushed into 2017, very kind of digital age, slightly sci-fi. There'll be a few more slides available to this that go more into detail for each. Am I doing this
Yeah,
correctly?
it's okay. I think the metallic rainbow one was on twice.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
On the actual blog post, you'll see that there's some more further examples for each color direction. Then silver and gold, it may sound repetitive, but my job is to tell you what's happening. So silver and gold is not really going anywhere. A couple of seasons ago we had rose gold, but what's new this season is the combination silver and gold together combined in jewelry. And that could even be in terms of khaki. So for example, if you had some kind of military khaki kind of canvas, or in America we would call that sand, not the army color, more of a sand color, paired with silver touches. So yeah, that's the detailed slide here. So that kind of shows you. I also put some examples of some Pulse brands on the blog post. And what's interesting here is also sort of the uneven shapes, the artful shapes. My job as a forecaster is to often look at art to try to cross-triangulate with some, but these reports specifically have a lot of specific design directions. So also what was coming through in the studio's research is pearls. Now pearls is an ancient material used in jewelry, but what's interesting right now is the use of pearls really celebrating their natural shape and just use, their uneven natural pearl as it comes as it is in the oyster. So that was coming through quite strongly, with also some really interesting ways of mixing it with a plastic ring, or mixing as an interesting headband. So it's just bringing an ancient old type of material in a new way. And this was also coming through in the use of gems, shells and gems. So what I mean by gems, I mean crystals, but also gems. And why I put them together is because you have these kind of color gradations in the cut. You have these striations, and I was also seeing that on the floor today in some of the jewelry specifically. And it's also a very natural material. And in terms of fashion, it was coming through on the Autumn/Winter 17 catwalk as really, again, celebrating it in its rawness in really oversized shapes, just taking the crystal almost as is, or just taking the shells and making them look as they've just been spread over the garment. So that's roughly for some of the key materials directions for Autumn/Winter 17. Now, this is a blog post that also hasn't been published yet, but you will see it and keep an eye on it. With Pulse, we felt that it was very important for a lot of brands who are showing here to understand what it means to have a sustainable approach. I call it aesthetics with ethics, or responsible by design, and it's really about how to enable smaller brands and retailers to incorporate some of the key rules of having a sustainable business without breaking the bank. And so this article kind of talks you through some of the key facts. But number one, transparency is key, and that means not only transparency in terms of the materials that you use, but transparency in terms of the suppliers you use. How are they treating their staff? How are you treating your staff? This is important for if you want to call yourself a sustainable business, you have to have ethics in how you treat others. And in the blog post, I talk about also some PR nightmares. If you don't treat people well in this era, it could backfire against you. So it's good for the world and good for business. The cost of climate change. This chapter kind of talks about how much we cost in terms of our impact on the industry, and it's just basically facts. And it might sound a bit depressing. We don't have much time, so I don't know. Do I have time to go over a few facts and figures?
Yeah, I think.
Not really. No. Okay,
Oh.
that's fine. Essentially, this will give you some facts on how some brands are also taking that cost of climate change in the way they use materials by either using recycled plastics from the ocean. A lot of you have probably heard of this. Or, for example, Levi's is developing a jean that you can put back in your garden and it'll turn into mulch. So there's a lot of different things you can do that are good for the environment, but also create a brand loyalty, because your consumer will come back to you not just because of your price point, not just because what you're doing is pleasing to the eye, but because they can come back to it, reuse it in different ways, and it's doing more than just being an item.
And the audience can find out more
on the blog,
on the blog
and
anyway.
just
so
lastly, the blog post will give you examples. Basically, the blog post is covered in hyperlinks, and especially this part with strategic websites that can really give you the tools on how to become more informed and build this into your business strategy. So
Okay.
thank you.
Fabulous, thank you.